On a very ordinary day, somewhere in time, there's a conference being held at the White House to resolve political issues. People are making plans for the future, not knowing what lies ahead, until suddenly, everything changes. For some unknown reason, every male on Earth dies suddenly, without any cause, whether human, animal, or bird. Even the president dies, and the only ones who survive this catastrophe are a young man named Euro Brown, who's failing at life, and his chimpanzee, Emerson. In another part of the world, we're introduced to Regina Oliver. At the moment this disaster strikes, we learn that she was supposed to take over the presidency, but she was out of the country and no one had heard anything about her. The absence of leadership during this critical time leads to severe consequences. As a result, the world is turned upside down. Women panic and start destroying everything around them, not knowing how they will continue their lives. Over time, tensions increase inside the White House, and the staff realize that within 2 weeks, things will collapse completely. Coal will run out, water resources will disappear, food won't last long, animals won't reproduce, and it's impossible to produce new resources quickly. Worse still, this isn't affecting just one country. It's global. Senator Jennifer Brown decides to take control of the presidency. Shortly after, Agent Sarah Bergen arrives, a member of the presidential secret forces. She informs Jennifer that she was sent here due to a major threat, but Jennifer didn't have time to receive detailed instructions regarding the new mission. Meanwhile, Euro remains locked inside his apartment to avoid being targeted by women. But when his food starts running out, he decides to leave a message for his girlfriend and goes outside to explore the situation. He still holds on to hope that she might be alive and could return home if she sees the messages. At the same time, Senator Brown sends Sarah on a mission to find her daughter, Hero, who hasn't been in contact since the disaster began. Unlike others, Hero doesn't hide in a safe place. Instead, she travels to refugee camps to help those in need, including a teenage girl whose lover died. Later, Hero returns to the hideout where her friends are gathered. At first, it seems that some men are still alive in the country, but soon it's discovered that these men were born with female bodies and underwent gender transition surgeries. Thus, the catastrophe didn't affect them. Soon after, an evacuation begins in New York City. We see tanks roaming the streets, and Euro has to hide so he won't be captured. However, he manages to sneak into a local bar to send another message to his girlfriend. He continues hoping she's still alive and might return home. As much as he tries to stay off the radar, trouble finds him again. His chimp escapes from its cage, forcing Euro to search for him. He follows the chimp into a tunnel filled with water and surrounded by corpses. Euro is forced to go into the water to look for his only companion. While searching, he thinks he sees another man, but upon closer inspection, it turns out to be nothing more than an illusion. His flashlight reveals only dirty water. After emerging from the water, he enters a clothing store to change clothes, but he doesn't know how to properly hide. The shop owner sees him and freezes in shock. One of the women with her suggests turning him in to the police for a reward. Eventually, though, they soften and give him fresh clothes, letting him go. The stress and anxiety Euro has experienced lately push him to the edge. He nearly loses his mind. While watching videos on his phone, he remembers the day he first saw the chimp. When the chimp hears his friend's voice, he comes out of hiding. The two return home feeling safe, but when Euro opens the door, he realizes someone has entered the apartment. Of course, he needs to defend himself, so he grabs a guitar and hides behind the door. Unfortunately, Sarah is faster and stronger than him. She subdues him. A few hours later, she takes him to her mother, Senator Brown. The pilots who bring them to the White House get locked up too. Sarah explains that they need to rest after the long journey, but everyone knows the real reason. No one must discover that the president's son is still alive, or suspicions and conspiracy will arise, causing bigger problems. Even Euro himself isn't enthusiastic about what's happening. After resting from everything he's gone through, Euro looks around and explores the place, but this ends up causing a new problem. Marla, the president's widow, sees him. Jennifer and Sarah arrive and pretend that Sarah acted out of concern because Marla was clearly overwhelmed. However, if the situation repeats itself, it could create a serious crisis. Therefore, Sarah decides that Euro needs to leave the White House. The president's daughter tries to ask her mother exactly what she saw, but Jennifer assures her that Marla was hallucinating. Still, Kimberly senses that Brown is lying to her. Later, Jennifer asks her assistants to find a geneticist to examine Euro and determine what happened, whether he and the chimp are the only survivors. The president wants specialists brought to the White House, but Sarah believes it's dangerous and insists that Euro must be removed from the country immediately. The agent is ready to carry out this difficult task herself, but she knows it must happen as quickly as possible. At this point, we see an injured woman waking up. Upon realizing all the men in the world have died, she declares that she must now take over the presidency of the United States. In the next scene, we meet Nora Brady, a former presidential advisor, walking with her young daughter Mackenzie after losing her husband and children, with no means of survival left. This makes her feel like she's about to break, but Nora decides to fight to save herself and her daughter. Later, news reaches the White House confirming that Regina Oliver, the main presidential candidate, is still alive. This causes the staff to split into two groups, one supporting Jennifer Brown, the other preferring Regina Oliver or Camberly, the president's daughter. With no other choice, Jennifer agrees to Sarah's decision and allows her son to be moved to a second, safer location. Sarah calls the pilots who brought Euro to the White House and motivates them by promising medals and promotions if they succeed in the mission. The only way to safely get Euro out of the building is to hide him among corpses in a vehicle. Her son hesitates and considers an alternative plan, but Sarah insists they can't afford to take risks. Euro reluctantly accepts, and indeed, Sarah successfully smuggles him and gets him onto a helicopter she intends to fly herself. It's planned that a second helicopter, carrying only women, will fly ahead of them as a decoy. However, as soon as the helicopters reach a certain area, the one ahead suddenly explodes and catches fire. Euro is terrified by the sight, but Sarah remains calm. She knows this was the price of silence from the pilots. A few hours later, Sarah and Euro land in the forest and rest briefly, although Sarah can't tolerate the smell. Euro smells terrible, especially after riding in a car full of corpses. It would be better if he washed his clothes before continuing the journey. Meanwhile, Hero, Euro's sister, leaves to find a safe place and travels with her transgender friend. While walking, they come across a store hoping to find food, but end up encountering Nora and Mackenzie. When Hero examines the girl, she notices a serious injury and asks Nora to provide first aid so they can continue their journey. In another part of the forest, Sarah and Euro's camp is attacked by a gang looking for food and water. Sarah tries to distract them while Euro puts on a mask and uses a stick to scare the girls away. Eventually, the girls walk away, and Sarah and Euro decide not to stay in the same place. They head to the nearest village, where they secure a helicopter engine and motorcycle bombs. As Sarah looks at the motorcycle, Euro forgets all safety rules and walks away. He thinks he sees his girlfriend Bath in the middle of the chaos. This reckless move lands him in a trap set by officers who remove his mask and discover his secret. Sarah has no choice but to intervene to protect him. She fights the officers and rescues Euro, but once they're clear, she stops and scolds him for his recklessness, reminding him how dangerous and important their mission is, how he nearly ruined everything. Meanwhile, Hero, her friend, and Nora with her daughter find shelter for the night. Hero tells Nora that her daughter has serious health problems and needs antibiotics and medications that people have stolen long ago. At this moment, Nora feels helpless and scared for her daughter, so she steps outside to cry, trying not to let her daughter see her. Outside, she encounters women on horseback who claim to own the land and don't like the idea of strangers staying there. The women threaten to kill them. Nora notices that one of the women is injured and devises a plan to save them. She asks Hero to examine and help the woman. Hero does everything she can, but the wound is deep, and they only have salt and gloves. After hours of effort, they make no progress, and the girl's condition worsens. Roxanne, the leader of the group, decides to end the girl's suffering. Nora realizes that Roxanne is actually kind-hearted and understanding. She invites them to stay the night and promises to provide the antibiotics they need from a nearby location. After the others follow Roxanne, Hero discovers that the antibiotics are just a small part of what the group possesses. They have a large mall filled with food and supplies. Meanwhile, Sarah and Euro continue toward Boston, hoping to find biologist Dr. Allison. However, they encounter a military checkpoint at the city entrance, heavily guarded with tear gas. Sarah suggests they separate. She'll distract the guards while Euro sneaks around the barrier. Once Sarah meets her colleagues, she realizes that the absence of men hasn't ended crime. Rebel groups frequently attack Harvard, seeking answers to their questions. Their plan succeeds. Sarah distracts the guards, and Euro enters the compound and hides. There, he falls into the hands of rebels. Fortunately, they mistake him for a transgender woman and allow him to pass, even telling him where he can find others like him, obtain hormones, and hide. Finally, Euro and Sarah reach Allison's apartment and enter her office at Harvard. When Allison finds people in her home, she attacks them. But as soon as Euro removes his mask, she instantly understands why they came. She realizes that the boy needs to be studied, but she says it's now impossible to work at Harvard due to lack of tools and biological samples. Therefore, she suggests they travel to San Francisco to use the lab there. Sarah agrees to embark on another dangerous journey, but secretly disables their radio while hiding, removing the only way they can communicate with headquarters. Later, she uses the radio failure as an excuse to leave and asks Euro to stay with Allison until she finds another way to communicate with the White House. At the same time, Conflict arises as each woman wants to take over the presidency, although not everyone remains focused on the issue. One of Jennifer Brown's assistants, named Christine, grows tired and fears losing her baby. However, after undergoing an ultrasound, she learns the opposite. The pregnancy is progressing well, and there's a high chance the child is a boy. In another part of town, Sarah enters a stranger's house, but finds the homeowner is also a secret agent like herself. Initially, the two fight, but after calming down, they discover they both work for the same organization and have come for the same reason: to locate and kill the homeowner. After Jennifer learns about the helicopter incident, she becomes deeply concerned, but Christine tries to calm her. The search team informs her they found the pilots' bodies, yet the president remains uneasy. She suspects Sarah staged the accident to eliminate unnecessary witnesses. She worries about Euro being with a dangerous criminal and what Sarah might do to him. Regina Oliver, the presidential candidate, goes to the White House. At the same time, Camberly seizes the opportunity and attempts a coup against Jennifer Brown to take control of the situation. Meanwhile, Allison admits to Euro that she's unsure if her research will succeed. She doesn't know if they'll ever find the resources needed to understand why the men died. However, she's certain that Euro and Emerson will face many difficulties and are likely to become test subjects. After a while, Sarah returns to the office and suggests they move forward. For some reason, she lies to Euro and tells him she contacted her mother and has permission to travel to San Francisco right now. The three begin their journey, unaware that a military patrol is searching the country for Sarah. At the moment the women wait in a safe place, Euro decides to go to the location the rebels told him about, a community of transgender individuals, so he can remove his mask and interact with them. When Sarah sees Euro remove the mask, she panics and gets angry at him. But later, she realizes the real danger isn't him, it's her. At that moment, the patrol arrives and broadcasts Sarah's image. The trio flees from the patrol and hides in a church. Inside, Sarah confesses that she has no means of communicating with the White House and that she made all the decisions on her own. Meanwhile, Hero, her friend, Nora, and her daughter continue living in Roxanne's community. At first, they seem to have found an ideal life, with food, peace, and security. But when Nora tries to take her daughter from one of the women, Roxanne gets angry and insists they must obey every rule she sets. Moreover, Roxanne works hard to ensure Mackenzie hates men and joins her faction. At that moment, they spot a warning sign. Women begin setting up barricades and arming themselves to defend their supermarket. However, they later discover the enemy is just a small group of poor women with a little girl. Roxanne emerges to confront them, but refuses to accept newcomers into her community. Even when they try to gain her sympathy using the little girl, she rejects them and refuses to help. At this point, Allison finds a paper among Sarah's belongings, a wanted poster for Sarah. She suggests to Euro that he should escape, as there appears to be danger in staying with Sarah. However, Euro refuses to betray his friend, even though he knows Sarah is hiding something. That night, Roxanne gathers the entire community for a celebration. At the beginning of the event, she talks about Laura, one of the movement's members, calling her Amazon. At first, it seems normal, but soon Hero and her companions sense something strange happening. They witness the girl being buried in dirt, then placed in a bathtub and washed. Afterward, she is celebrated and given a new name, Athena. Sam feels uncomfortable about what's happening and leaves the gathering. One of the movement's members follows him and warns him not to challenge authority, but this lands her in trouble, and she is called out. Back at the White House, Jennifer receives a report indicating that the search team has found traces of Euro. They prepare to confront her, and the president fears the team may find her son again. However, at this moment, Allison convinces Euro to leave, and the two flee into the forest. Tension increases as the team tries to capture Euro and Allison, but Sarah confronts the soldiers and disables their radio equipment, cutting off all communication with the White House. That night, Nora wakes up to screaming sounds. She avoids taking a shower and peeks through a door opening, witnessing a group of girls punishing the girl who spoke with Sam. Unfortunately, Nora doesn't intervene because she fears for her daughter, thus agreeing to follow their rules. In another part of town, Sarah finds a car, and the group continues their journey to San Francisco. Since Euro and Allison tried to escape, Sarah begins to distrust them, which leads to another catastrophe. While driving, she falls asleep and crashes. After getting out of the car, Allison searches for Sarah, but can't find her. Suddenly, a military vehicle appears, but it has no connection to the White House. In another location, Jennifer hears about the accident and learns that among the people found was a young man. She tries to deflect suspicion from her son. Elsewhere, Euro regains consciousness and finds himself in a strange house. Surprisingly, he sees a woman sleeping beside him. He immediately looks for his chimp, but meets the people who brought him here. It becomes evident that the residents of the farm where Euro is staying appear very peaceful, but they refuse to tell him where his friends are. Meanwhile, the girls wake up and find themselves in a prison cell with no idea where they are or how to escape. In another part of town, Jennifer speaks to citizens, asking them to agree to the evacuation without creating problems. However, she spots someone familiar in the crowd, Beth, her son's girlfriend, who has been in the hospital all this time. While speaking with her, Camberly continues convincing Regina to stage a coup against Jennifer and take her place. Back with Euro, he feels uneasy about the friendly atmosphere. They aren't allowing him to leave. Eventually, they throw him into the cell with the girls, waiting to decide what to do with him. At the same time, Jennifer receives terrible news. A new type of flu has been discovered in Greece. She begins addressing this new crisis, but faces another problem when Marla arrives at the center, asking whether the rumors about Euro are true. Meanwhile, the young men begin suffocating from the air in the prison cell. Euro and Sarah argue until they hear the sound of the door opening. A woman enters and tells them that a decision has been made. They're allowed to stay until Sarah calms down, and afterward, they will be taken out of the country to continue their journey to San Francisco. The farmers give Sarah a separate room. Before falling asleep, she warns Euro not to trust anyone and to be careful. However, Euro believes she's exaggerating. The farm seems peaceful, and the people there seem very kind. Plus, they have plenty of food, electricity, water, and comforts that have become rare in most areas today. At this time, Marla's grief intensifies beyond measure. She climbs to the rooftop, intending to jump in hopes of reuniting with her husband and children. She leaves a letter for her daughter, apologizing for what she's about to do and encouraging her to be strong. Meanwhile, Beth returns to the country, but instead of going back to her friends, as she told Jennifer, she heads to a rebel car containing a group planning to attack the White House. Returning to Roxanne's community, we learn that Kat tries to leave the group, but Roxanne reminds her of the rules and shoots her, but doesn't admit it to the others. She fabricates the incident as an enemy attack to prevent others from leaving. In response, Roxanne intensifies training drills and plans to expel the guests. When Nora learns this, she approaches Roxanne and tries to trick her into letting her and her daughter stay. However, none of her tricks work with Roxanne. Eventually, Roxanne gives Nora a few extra days but tells her that after that, she and her daughter must leave. Later, Roxanne reflects on the day she found this place and founded the Amazon community. From the very beginning, she has lived as a leader, never changing. She continues establishing laws and convincing the women that without her protection, they'd all be in danger. Every day, she holds meetings and encourages the women to talk about the wicked nature of men, reinforcing the belief that she alone provides safety. Sam is banned from these gatherings and begins preparing to leave, planning to go to the guest house by the lake to build his own community. However, Hero begins to be influenced by Roxanne's words and tells Sam she doesn't want to leave. Roxanne watches their argument and takes advantage of the situation, manipulating Hero further and convincing her that no man should speak to her that way, even if he isn't truly a man. Eventually, the friends separate. That night, Roxanne lets Sam leave and allows him to take a little food with him. The next day, Roxanne pretends not to know that it was Hero who convinced Sam to leave. Quite the opposite, she acts supportive and even organizes a farewell party to say goodbye to everything related to males. The celebration ends with a big party everyone enjoys, except Nora, who fails to integrate with the others. To take revenge, Nora sets fire to them all while everyone celebrates. Fortunately, they manage to survive, but all their possessions are destroyed. Nora hides her happiness and pretends to be sad about what happened, blending in with the others. After this, she prepares to escape at night with her daughter and goes to the forest to ensure their safety. However, she discovers a police car filled with corpses, realizing that Roxanne isn't what she seems. Nora decides to use this information to her advantage. While they are alone, Nora confronts Roxanne with the discovery and threatens to remain silent in exchange for some privileges, such as better food, protection, and housing for her and her daughter. Moreover, she promises to help Roxanne maintain control over the group, even after losing everything. Roxanne agrees to Nora's terms and gathers the women, telling them they will overcome all obstacles and defeat the world. Meanwhile, Sarah begins to relax and resumes training, although she still suffers from hallucinations and sees strange things. Despite everything, she continues watching Euro, who is starting to trust this community and interact with them with great optimism. Sarah begins to suspect them when one of the villagers approaches her and asks strange questions about a device they found in the car involved in the crash. However, Sarah refuses to answer, clearly not wanting Euro to know about the device. By order of Roxanne, Hero finds another place to sleep and encounters a group of women holding a memorial for the deceased man. Roxanne, hiding behind women's rights, raids the community to steal food and supplies from them. At that moment, the girls attack them, but at that moment, Nora notices that instead of stealing food and water, they're destroying all resources in a frenzy. When Nora objects to what's happening, Roxanne insists this is the correct path. After Regina, Oliver recovers from exhaustion. She prepares to take Jennifer Brown's place and tells her allies to prepare for a coup within 30 minutes. To gain greater support, Regina turns to Camberly. But since her mother's death, Camberly no longer has the motivation or energy to join the rebellion. Meanwhile, under the government building, Team Beth plants explosives. Jennifer Brown goes to the center, where they accuse her of hiding information about Euro. To protect her pregnant assistant, she is forced to confess that her son is alive and that they sent him to a geneticist to save humanity, but no one knows if he arrived safely. Eventually, even those who supported Jennifer remain standing in line with Regina, demanding that Jennifer step down and hand over the position to the true president. At that moment, a massive explosion occurs in the building. They understand that the rebels have entered the White House. We learn that Beth and her team did this and are entering through tunnels, confronting the president's security service and forcing them to surrender. However, Jennifer recognizes Beth, even though she's covering her face. The girl whispers for Jennifer to stay quiet and not expose her. At that moment, Regina feels she no longer wants to be president due to the danger. Therefore, Jennifer Brown must take responsibility. She negotiates with the rebels and responds to their demands. The rebels remove the hostages from the control center, hoping to exit the building without encountering the townspeople. Here, Regina claims she should be the president and that everyone must listen to her. Amid everything, she accuses everyone of betraying her and tries to expose her allies, including Camberly. Finally, she reveals that Jennifer Brown's son is still alive. One of the rebels shoots her in the chest, but after she confesses everything, the rebels feel their plans have failed. Meanwhile, Euro's presence in the community begins to cause problems. The women there start acting suspiciously, hoping to draw attention to him, the last man on Earth. At that moment, Sarah takes advantage of Euro's distraction and Allison's preoccupation with the locals. She heads to the forest to destroy the device that reveals her location. In another part of town, the rebels fail to retrieve the hostages in time. A second gang arrives and releases gas through ventilation shafts. Gunfire echoes through the corridors, causing people to flee in fear. Those who can't escape in time tragically die. At that moment, Beth removes Jennifer's handcuffs without anyone noticing and tries to take her far away. Jennifer doesn't have time to rescue her pregnant assistant, but Christine isn't alone. Camberly helps her. Eventually, the girls emerge from the underground garage. Returning to Roxanne, we learn she found a notebook containing the names of all surviving men. Now, Roxanne finds a new goal, to hunt down and destroy these men to liberate the planet. They decide to start with the man they previously saw living in a nearby village. When Nora shows Roxanne his picture, it turns out to be Euro. In another part, Beth gives Jennifer her uniform. Before leaving, Jennifer tells her that Regina's words were true. Euro is still alive. Later, Roxanne and Nora go to the village where they heard a man is living. However, when Sarah senses danger, she tells her companions they must leave quickly. This disappoints Euro, but he no longer has the will to argue with Sarah. Returning to the gang, we learn that Roxanne managed to pinpoint Euro's location and tells her team to prepare. They will attack again in a few hours. At that moment, two people infiltrate Roxanne's camp, and Hero learns of the president's death. Since she doesn't know the title has passed to Regina, Hero believes her mother has died, but the truth is Jennifer is still alive. After assuming her daughter is also dead, Jennifer prepares to escape with Beth, as she can no longer stay in the country now that the rebels are after her. At night, Sam enters the house where Jennifer is located, and she recognizes him as her daughter's boyfriend. They attempt to escape, but the house is surrounded. At the same time, Christine and Camberly are hiding in an abandoned stable. After waking up, Camberly tells Christine that she knows how they can be safe. They need Euro to continue the human race. Returning to Euro, we find him still in the village when suddenly, Roxanne and the girls enter, searching for him. At that moment, Sarah panics the moment she hears gunfire and tells her beloved Euro to take him out of the house, just as she faces the gang. When they realize the gang outnumbers them, Sarah exits with her hands raised, pretending to be afraid. She takes the transgender girl from the village with her and delivers her as the surviving man. Suddenly, they hear distant gunfire. Sarah seizes the opportunity and attacks the restrained girl, escaping. Even the young girl Mackenzie joins the battle, trying to prove to Roxanne that she deserves a place in the community. At that moment, Hero runs after those fleeing and fires at them until Euro appears. When she sees him, she's shocked, but Euro's girlfriend doesn't recognize him as her brother and shoots her. Wounded, Hero tells him their mother has died and that her gang wants to kill him, telling him he must escape. To buy time, she kills one of the gang members. All of this happens while the world remains upside down in the other half. Suddenly, Nora raises her hands and stands in the middle, announcing their surrender. This enrages Roxanne, but no one pays attention. At that moment, Hiro tells Nora that Yuro is still alive, giving them a reason to return to their camp. Here, Nora exposes Roxanne and opens the eyes of the girls to the truth, but mere words have no effect. Roxanne continues provoking Nora until Nora kills her. At that moment, all the girls stand up and raise their weapons at her, but Hiro steps forward and stands on Nora's side. From that moment on, the community announces they now have a new leader. In the other part, Sarah walks a long distance until she reaches Daiyuro and Allison. The boy is broken and feels he has lost everything he loved and has no reason to live anymore. When Sarah hears this, she tells him she understands. She also lost her family when she was young. She tells Yuro that if he wants, she can leave, since everything she did was following Jennifer's orders, and now that Jennifer is dead, the agreement between them has ended. But he refuses and asks her to train him, to stop being naive and learn how to protect himself. At the same time, Jennifer, Beth, and Siam find themselves locked in an empty room with surveillance cameras. They have no idea that Sarah's superiors in the Secret Service are the ones keeping them captive. Sarah receives a signal and takes her companions to the car. The car doesn't have gasoline, but instead contains scientific research tools and a map with a marked route. However, they don't know exactly where this route leads. And with that, the events of our movie today come to an end. Wait for more videos and summaries. Goodbye.